Miller Mahdi from 8451 here. Welcome to another episode of The Uplow'd. We're glad you're here. Each month we dig into the world of AI, thick data, machine learning, data science. We invite you to stick around and let us know what you think. Keep an open mind and stay curious.
Welcome to The Uplow'd. I'm your host, Dan O'Keefe. Today we're talking with Amanda Jack, BJ Schmidt, and Greg Noble. Welcome to The Uplow'd, guys. So we are once again, thanks to coronavirus, coming to you today via virtual means as we continue to take the proper precautions and distance ourselves socially from one another. Our guests today are 8451 Lead Solutions Design Consultant for Forecasting and MINs, Amanda Jack, Kroger's Senior Manager of Retail Operations, BJ Schmidt, and 8451 Director of Data Science for Operations Research, Greg Noble. Thank you all for being here today. I hope you all are staying safe and healthy where you are. Before we begin, I think it's important to call out that our episode today sets a record, guys, for most guests ever. There are 4 of us total, 3 guests, and then there's me. For our listeners and viewers' understanding, would you all please tell us a bit about yourselves and your current roles?
All right, sounds good. So BJ Schmidt, as you mentioned, Senior Manager of Retail Operations at Kroger. My team helps our stores ensure we have the best orders possible for replenishing product to our stores. We work very closely with Amanda and Greg and the rest of the 8451 team to make that happen. And of course, then partner with our store associates on processes, as well as the technology teams on new solutions that we introduce to make our shelves look better and get our product to our stores in a more efficient manner.
Fantastic.
So that's what I focus on.
Fantastic. Well, we appreciate that. Greg, how about we go to you?
Yeah, Greg Noble, Director of Operations Research Data Science. So I get to do all the cool work before it ends up in the store. So I manage a team of several extremely talented and hardworking data scientists. And we put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into developing solutions that use science and in some way improve our customers and associates' lives, and also integrate into Kroger systems in the process. So it's an extremely fun place to be. I've been with operations research for 7 years now, both with Kroger and as we transitioned over to 8451. And just over the years, I've had the opportunity to work on several major and exciting opportunities and projects to just really have some impact to Kroger's bottom line from a science and financial perspective. So it's been fun.
Fantastic. Thank you. And Amanda.
Yeah, so I'm the new kid on the block here. I have been with 8451 for about 2 years now. As you mentioned, I'm the lead solution design consultant for forecasting MINs. I work a lot on store ordering specifically, so working really closely with BJ's team, as well as the teams that from 8451 that drive a lot of the inputs to that store order. So Greg's team with automated MINs, which we're talking about today, as well as forecasting and the forecasts that are used within the store order. Prior to coming to 8451, I spent the last 10 years in various merchandise planning and allocation roles across a lot of different fashion retailers. So a little bit different coming over to Kroger and working with, beans and milk. Definitely a huge opportunity here. The Kroger business is continuing to grow and presenting really exciting and new opportunities for us to chase down. And most recently, prior to coming to 8451, I was a business planning manager at Nike out in Oregon. So just scenery, change of product, and it's been a great 2 years so far.
Great. Speaking of a change of scenery, again, we're all working virtually. We're all talking today from our various remote locations. Where is everyone on today's call? Are we all in the same general vicinity, or is anyone calling from outside the greater Cincinnati area?
I think Greg has the longest commute, but we all are Cincinnati based.
Okay, great. Well, again, it's a pleasure to have all of you on today's podcast. We're very excited. And Amanda, you kind of stole my thunder. I was going to mention that today's topic is AutoMINs, right? But you did that. So that stands for automated MINs, correct? And it ties in with store ordering, correct?
Yep.
So why don't you start us off by telling us what exactly is a MIN?
Sure. Well, a min is a pretty common industry-wide term. It's traditionally thought of as the minimum amount of inventory you need between store deliveries for every single item. The purpose it serves is it really couples with the forecast within the store ordering suggested order equation. So, when you're looking at that suggested order equation for every item for every store across the Kroger enterprise, you look at what do you need, which is your forecasted sales plus your automated min. And then what do you have, which is what's already in the store and what's on the way to the store. So really the min is a really crucial piece of that need equation and normally serves to protect presentation stock as well as safety stock to prevent any out of stock and to keep the store looking good.
Gotcha. Great. And then, Greg, can you expand on that? How are AutoMINs created and used within store ordering?
Yeah, so we actually take a look at that need and what we have in the store, and we basically simulate out what would happen if we put any number of candidate mins in place for that order. So you can imagine if we or create a really low AutoMIN, we might run out of stock. Or if we create a really high min and send that down, we might run back stock on products. And we do a balancing act. We try to say, where should this min be so that we minimize the amount of out of stocks that we have while simultaneously minimizing the amount of back stock, because that's going to cause our store associates to have to move product in and out of our back room and cause more labor. We try to minimize the amount of shrink we occur from those items, because some of our items have short shelf lives. And we also try to minimize the amount of inventory carrying costs that we incur. So it costs money to keep that product in the store.
Gotcha.
And between all of that, we really come up with a nice solution that, one, will maximize the profit for Kroger. And two, in instances where maybe we're not hitting certain minimum thresholds, we put what's called a ready for business min in place. And that serves as a way to basically make the shelf look presentable, so
Gotcha.
that when our customers come in the store, they see plenty of options and plenty of product to choose from.
Gotcha. And now, BJ, coming from the Kroger side of the equation, can you tell us a little historical perspective? What was the process for setting them in before automation occurred, and why did you want to automate the min output at that certain point?
Sure. So, it was left really up to the store and to the associates to manage. And you can imagine across the entire store with 40 to 60,000 products, setting them in could be a very tedious task. It could be something where you might set it and leave it and pretty much leave it alone and not have to mess with it. But also during different time periods, different seasons, the demand for product obviously goes up and down as seasons change, especially around holidays and whatnot. And so it was a very manual process that our store associates had to have a really good understanding of. They couldn't just come in off the street and start and be able to set them in. They needed to learn how it all worked and how it worked into the equation of the order for replenishment. And then the computer generated min really assists them in that process. So they still had the opportunity to manually touch it, but we're really giving them a head start and putting them at a greater advantage so that, as Greg mentioned, we have that presentation standard and that full shelf that we're looking for at the end of the day, or even at the start of the day for the business.
Gotcha. This sounds like it was a pretty big, maybe even monstrous enterprise-wide change, right? What was the rollout like for something like this?
Sure. So it is very challenging when you think about the number of stores and the number of associates that we have across the enterprise. We had to be very, very good at managing that change and educating our associates on the why. So starting with the why behind the purpose of doing this, how it would help improve their lives, getting their partnership in it so that we could really get their buy-in as well as their support. And then there were several tactical things that we did. So my team worked directly with divisions across the country to start with first a learning store, so that would give that division and that store the opportunity to see how all this works. And then they allowed that learning store to be their education center for the rest of the division and roll out from there. So driving the change management is challenging, but also just giving the associates in the stores the education so that they trust it. Because if we didn't have their trust up front, it would be a much more challenging rollout. But once we got that momentum with that learning store and some of the other meetings and town halls that we held with divisions, it really became a pull versus a push from our perspective.
You touched a lot in that last comment on learning store and education and the fact that this was a very manual process done by store associates up to this point. So Amanda, if I may, how is historical data taken into consideration in AutoMIN's calculations, since we're talking about so much historical data, right?
Yeah, so as Greg mentioned, and as we've been talking about, the forecast does play a role in the MIN. Historical forecasts and actualized sales are used within the calculation of the MIN to help protect safety stock needed to prevent out of stock. So we really do understand what those historical trends have looked like and how the forecast has performed in relation to that to recommend what that safety stock should be outside of the presentation piece of AutoMINs that we talked about. I think most recently, COVID-19 was a huge
anomaly, right? Yeah, disruption.
Anomaly, and a very difficult, it's unprecedented. So when you're talking about forecasting sales during that time period, we know that not only are our forecasts more volatile, but also our demand signal had changed significantly. And our sales increased a lot, which meant our warehouses were definitely at capacity. So the way that we thought about how the MIN played into the order, not only in assessing the historical sales and forecast accuracy for that safety stock, but also in terms of how we could use the MIN to better prioritize what inventory the warehouses were working came into play. So as Greg mentioned, we do have kind of two sides of MINs. We have more of a presentation side or ready for business MIN. And then we also have the optimal side, which deals more with some of those cost trade-offs as well as that safety stock calculation. So when the COVID time period hit, in order to make sure that we were putting our inventory in the most prioritized place, team was amazing at responding very quickly and creating functionality to only rely on the optimal side of the equation, because we knew presentation stock wasn't as high of a priority during that time.
Right.
We wanted to make sure we were more protecting the sales and the volume that was behind the sales. So I think when you're working with data science and working with Ph.D. level data scientists who can really manipulate these very complex codes, I think it gives us a lot of ability to react during these unprecedented times. So
that begs another question. I'm curious, and I'm not sure which one of you is best positioned to answer this, but this project was underway when COVID hit, correct? Like how percentage-wise, how far along were you with AutoMINs before or when COVID erupted and caused you to, in real time, implement this in-process transition, right? This in-process tool.
Yeah, I'll take that if you don't mind. It was really interesting because we actually started out with close to 600 stores, and then starting in, I think, Q2 last year, we just started expanding pretty rapidly. BJ's team did an amazing job of showing just different divisions, like the capabilities that we could bring by automating this feed rather than trying to manage it manually. Once COVID hit, we probably had 400 or 500 stores left at that point, maybe a few more. So we had to pause because there was just so much other craziness going on as a result of COVID.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, the interesting thing was, I think BJ and his team were a little too good at their job because they created so much demand that in the middle of COVID, just 2 or 3 weeks after the big first round of hits, we had divisions asking, when are we going to get put on AutoMINs? Can we get AutoMINs now? So we actually had to to start planning to ramp back up that rollout pretty quickly after we paused it, actually. So it was a pretty exciting time, and it just tip my hat to BJ and his team for being able to do such a phenomenal job on explaining the product and promoting it to the divisions.
Well, BJ, you're both overqualified and apparently a legend before your time. Congratulations.
Thanks.
I will also say, even though COVID went on for months, we were BJ's team delivered the expansion only 2 weeks delayed.
Wow.
So I think a huge testament, both to BJ's team and the work that they did on that change management, as well as to the opportunities and benefits of the actual AutoMINs product.
Well, congrats, BJ, on that. And really congrats to all three of you and your teams. How many teams really from both 8451 and Kroger were in some way, shape, or form involved in AutoMINs development and the quick adaptation to this huge challenge that was thrust upon us?
Yeah, from my point of view, we really work obviously with Amanda and Greg and their teams at 8451, but we also work very closely with Kroger technology. This gets plugged into our computer assisted ordering tool, so it has to be connected in that manner. And of course, then we partner very closely with all of our divisions. We have a leader in every division that we partnered with, or a leader in operations in every division, I should say, that we would partner with. So it's really almost like we're serving multiple customers, even though they're all internal. And so there's really two major groups: Kroger Technology, our divisions, and I should say the third group is obviously there's on this call.
Gotcha. And so it sounds like the role. Go ahead, Amanda.
Sorry, I also just kind of wanted to give a nod to some of the upstream teams whose data they ingest. So, I think the forecasting teams played a big role within AutoMINs to help with that, contemplating the forecast. Also, if you think about it, the MIN is really helping to determine how much inventory should be on the shelf. So the merchandising groups obviously have a vested interest in how that comes to life and the way that comes to life. So also partnering with the teams that determine the planograms or how much inventory is on the shelf. That's another big input that MINs ingest to understand what that shelf capacity is. So we did a ton of work with that team to make sure we were ingesting the right data there. And then last, I would say supply chain. So the supply chain team, obviously the work and the inventory flows that goes to the store impacts supply chain. So they have also been a great partner throughout this transition.
So it sounds like this not only was a successful rollout, but it probably exceeded expectations in the midst of COVID.
I would also just add too, it helps you uncover things, uncover problems you don't really know you have. And so a lot of times when you're rolling out projects, and in my experience at Kroger and rolling out initiatives, is you are successful at rolling out that particular initiative. People report problems that are related to it, such as making sure our shelf spacing settings are correct, because allocation or shelf space setting is critical for the automated MIN to work properly. And a lot of the issues we encountered when we rolled out were related to the allocation metric being incorrect. Setting was incorrect in the first place. So, and a lot of times, the people we were working with were saying, "Oh, the AutoMIN is incorrect." When we would do the real investigation, we'd say, "Actually, no, the shelf space is incorrect. We fixed that. We fixed the AutoMIN." So that's the beauty of doing something like this. It sheds light in an area that you wouldn't otherwise be shedding light on.
So you identified gaps, you educated yourselves and your teams in the process. Greg, in addition to those findings, what results have you seen from implementing AutoMINs?
Yeah, so we started measuring a lot of results as soon as we started the big rollout back in Q2 last year. One of the biggest improvement areas that we saw was immediately in backstock. So if you think our associates have to deal with all the extra product that don't fit on the shelves within a limited amount of space in the back room, and if that gets too cluttered, they lose products. We can't find them. They can't get to the products they need to get to be able to restock the shelves. And so we either have one or two things happen. We have products sitting in the back room that just never makes it to the floor because the associates can't get to it, or they have to spend an inordinate amount of time to get to that product, so they're less efficient at being able to restock shelves. Throughout this rollout process, we observed a 30% reduction in the amount of backstock that we had between the stores that had our AutoMIN solution and the stores that didn't have that solution. That's just huge. Beyond that, we could kind of tie it back to what we classify as a rogue min. So a rogue min is essentially a min value that's set in the system that under no circumstance would you ever really need that high of a value in order to meet your demand for that product.
And again, it's rogue, ROGUE, min,
yes,
right? Okay,
right.
Gotcha.
And in that area, we saw a reduction from anywhere from 50 to 70 instances per store down to the range of 2 to 3. So again, pretty significant, and obviously a contributor to that backstock inventory.
Right, right.
There in the non-live divisions.
That's awesome. That's a pretty granular level finding. You know,
Yeah.
that's awesome. That's pretty cool. So let's talk about the future. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to give the kudos back. So it's cyclical. So the data he just talked about is really what helps build the momentum and the pool for rollout. So when we were armed with that data, that really made our lives a lot easier. And so when we were partnering with divisions, we had that data with us, and we could show them, this is the value that you're going to get out of this.
Gotcha.
I think, BJ, to that point as well, we also use the data through facilitating some proof of concepts using the AutoMIN solution to look at, what our projected sales impact would be from rolling out this solution, and to build a business case to ensure we could secure the resources and funding to develop the product and expand it. So when we did that test, we had observed a sales increase of $300 per store per week went live on this. So in 2020 alone, with this large expansion, that's about $25 million just in this fiscal year.
Wow, that's amazing. So Amanda, where do we go from here? What's the future for AutoMINs?
Yeah, the future is bright, and there are opportunities. So we are super excited. Kroger continues to, work to be best in class across all areas, but specifically across operations and supply chain. And so with that, within store ordering, I think there are a couple exciting updates that we're testing right now. One of them is developing multiple MINs per week. So today we send 1 MIN per week, and that MIN is the same every day. So every order that you have that week, it will use that 1 MIN that is sent at that store item level. In the future, we know that, the environment right now is very volatile. So we're working to send multiple MINs per week. So you could have a different MIN value on a Monday for the beginning of the week than you do on a Thursday for orders that are going to impact your weekend sales.
Right.
So I think that is a huge enhancement that we're really excited about. And we're also looking to expand some of our MIN coverage. Right now, we don't send MINs for fresh areas of the store, so like bulk produce, things that are sold by weight. Some really tricky complications there. So Greg's team has been doing a ton of work to try to solve that problem, to understand how can we create and start sending MINs for produce and bulk produce and all of the other fresh departments as well.
Gotcha. Great. So we've talked about the future. What about the other applications for this? We talked a lot about the findings and the learnings that resulted from this, or even along the way. So for what other rollouts might AutoMINs be a benchmark moving forward? Whether it's 8451 or Kroger or the two combined, how might this be a benchmark for other applications or efforts?
I think any data-driven expansion, I think it's really around change management.
Mm-hmm.
So the data-driven expansion, that change management that deals with educational learnings, any product that you offer. So whether that's a forecasting product, whether that's a directed replenishment project, which helps you determine how much inventory from the back room associates should be moving to the shelf. I think it really, one of the biggest takeaways that we had was that change management experience that BJ's team underwent. BJ, do you have anything else to add there?
Yeah, I think leading with data, especially when you get your first market fit of the product, when you really can get the users in a small amount of stores or divisions to start to use it, that is your proof of concept in technology. So that getting that buy-in from them and then allows you to get that gather that data, which then we can obviously play that data out over scale, and you can see how big the numbers can be. So leading with that, and I think also just bringing the individuals along with us along the journey. So doing things like having meetings well in advance of when they may go live, just to show them and demo it and be transparent about where it is, also helped. So it helped really make that moment when they finally did go live a little bit less difficult, because they were already aware of what was going on, and it helped. And then the last thing I would say that we used was just regular communication, a regular cadence of communication and news about it, showing the results regularly in enterprise-wide meetings, having conversations with divisions regularly, just so we were sharing the news and being leaders of the news cycle versus pushing it out and waiting to see what happened. We would proactively make sure that we were publishing news about automated MINs as the rollout was occurring.
Gotcha. Great. And Greg, any last comments to that last question?
No. We've had tons of success, and the product itself is, I think, going to pave the way for many future opportunities, both in the ordering and inventory space. That the data used in this project alone is way more than any project I've ever been involved with. So I can't imagine that we wouldn't find some more opportunities with all that data in one place.
And it sounds to me like, too, for those folks listening and or viewing today's episode, when they go to their local Kroger the next time, they might notice, whether it's on the shelf or just in their ability to interact with store associates, the ability for those folks to give them even more time now that AutoMINs is helping save some of that manual process, right?
That's correct.
That's great. Mm-hmm. So, folks, I really appreciate all of you being here, but I'm not going to let you go just yet. We have one last order of business. It's the most important part of the interview. It is now time for the 8451 lightning round, where we ask you 8 random questions for 51 seconds. Amanda, BJ, and Greg, are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. I'm going to get a stopwatch going, and here we go. Amanda, what are 3 things you grab before you leave the house?
Phone, keys, wallet. Go.
BJ, what's the best piece of advice you ever received?
Silence is okay.
And Greg, if you had a spirit animal, what would it be?
Eagle. It flies high, sees everything.
Wow, you answered that quickly. Amanda, who would play you in the movie about your life?
Emma Stone, maybe.
BJ, what's your favorite beverage?
I'll go with red wine.
Greg, what's the last book you read?
I have a 4-year-old. It's been 4 years since I've read a book.
So on a train engine, something like that?
No book.
All right. Amanda, as a child, what did you want to be when you grew up?
An attorney.
All right. And BJ, what's the most important personality trait for success?
Empathy.
Awesome. 50.25. Good job, guys. We made it.
Right.
And again, history was made here. Not only the largest number of interviewees at one time, but we actually got in under 51 seconds. Congratulations, guys.
Kudos.
Awesome.
Well, it has been a pleasure for me to be with all of you today. I'm glad everyone is doing well and staying healthy and safe. And I want to, again, for our viewers and listeners, I want to say thanks to Amanda Jack, BJ Schmidt, and Greg Noble for being our guests today. I'm your host, Dan O'Keefe, and we will see you next time on The Upload. Take care, everyone.
Millen here. That's it for this month's episode of The Upload. We hope you enjoyed it and hopefully learned something new. Remember to give us a like and share your feedback. Until next month, stay curious.